Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Cripped Podcast. On today's episode, we are joined by Don Munro, who is a retired paramedic that served locally here in Cranbrook. He tells his story of how an injury while at work led to a very mysterious neurological disorder that affects his day-to-day life to this very day. He then goes on to share his new passion for stoicism and philosophy and how that is shaping his life today. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Welcome to the Cripped Podcast, where we explore serious and often life-altering injuries, long-term recoveries, and the inspirational people who refuse to give up. Starring Cranbrook local, your host, Darcy Allen.
Don, welcome to the show.
For having me.
Yeah, this is the first time we've met, and why don't we start things off? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and we'll start from there.
Sure, my name's Don Munro. I was a paramedic. I got injured at work five years ago, actually, just this past November. Mm-hmm. And I did that for a few years, and prior to that, I owned the Cranbrook CrossFit in town here for what started in my basement. So I owned that for 12 years or whatever. So,
okay.
But I'm from Cranbrook.
Born and raised.
Born and raised. Went away with the military a few times, but always came back.
Yeah.
To Cranbrook. It's a good area to raise family. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been here for we were just talking briefly before we started, since 2002. So that's what were we at, 24 years now. It's the majority of my life, and I'm to the point now. It's I either need the ocean or I need the mountains.
Well, it feels like we got some Vancouver weather out there, right?
It's saying that. I was just reading earlier. They're calling for flurries in Vancouver over the weekend, and I'm just like, we don't even have snow on the ground. We're in the mountains.
It's crazy. It's crazy for sure.
I was just saying, I had a guest on last month, and it was mid-November at that time. And, we were both shocked that there was no snow on the ground. It's very common around here to have a white Halloween, and we're pretty close to not even having a white Christmas around here.
Yeah, well, my son and I were out quadding Sunday, and we were up pretty high, and there was hardly.
Yeah.
You get in the bush, there's not much snow at all. So
yeah. So you said you got injured while at work as a paramedic, correct? Yeah. So what happened that day?
So it was November. My partner and I got a call. My memory's getting a little sketchy, but a patient, older fella, crashed his scooter, and so a bigger fella. So we had some. We called fire. They weren't able to come and back us up for a lift assist. So our stretcher, for whatever reason, was having issues that day. And we went to literally had to manually lift, and those stretchers are a couple hundred pounds by themselves, plus the patient. So anyway, I just got a tweak in my back, and said, "Gee, that's pretty sore." So I told my partner about it, and then got to the hospital and got some other paramedics to give us a hand unload, and then the stretcher did a thing again, and I got in there and tweaked my lower back again, and I thought I'd be back. Took the rest of the shift off and thought I'd be back to work in a couple of days, but it progressed. Progressively, the pain got worse. So over the coming months, and I didn't get better. So MRI, CT scans didn't show nothing, but the pain was very much alive and active. So there was one day it got so bad there was a pop in my brain, and after that pop, I started to stutter, and so the result of that is the diagnosis is functional neurological disorder, which is a really bizarre disorder. I can lose my vision, and usually when that happens, I lose my ability to speak.
So is that from the because you said you kind of tweaked your back?
It was all from that back thing. So nobody really seems to know what happened, because back strains happen, but it was just a a freak thing. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any medical history. I'm not a doctor by any means. But that doesn't seem very common to connect a tweak in the back to a neurological disorder.
no, it's not. And I've seen numerous neurologists, and they've MRI'd me and ECG being done, all the tests, and they can find no structural damage that's causing all of these twitches and witching, like the dark glasses, from the light sensitivity. The seizures, the first 2 years, I had seizures just about nonstop every day, violent, and no medication to this date has helped with any of the symptoms. And I was on a high dose of hydromorphone and fentanyl. And then I read a book, maybe close to my second year being hurt, from Dr. Mel Pohl on the pain antidote and how those drugs actually create more pain receptors.
Yeah.
So right away, I quit cold turkey. My doctor was shocked that I just stopped taking it.
Yeah.
But I felt so horrible, whether I had withdrawals or not, who knows? But yeah, and I take it very rarely.
Yeah.
And I end up in the hospital. I used to end up in the hospital frequently for the chronic regional pain syndrome, and that's a ketamine treatment where they infuse me for 5 to 8 days in the hospital on ketamine, which I still avoid. I always lie to get out early because who likes being in the hospital?
Yeah, it's never a fun place to be stuck in a hospital. And the painkillers too. I mean, that's something that I tried to steer clear of as much as possible when I went through 2 surgeries. So it was a necessity for a period of time, but I'm like, I'm getting off of these as soon as I can, because one, I don't need to grow a dependency on painkillers. Maybe a little male bravado. I've always considered myself to have a high pain tolerance, but you see too many stories of that, turning into even worse addictions, whether it's getting into, the harder, heroin or whatever it might be. I figured I'm already going to have a tough enough time. I don't need to make my life more difficult.
Yeah, and it was making my life worse because you're so medicated. You can't think. You're just. Yeah. My quality of life was pretty poor until I got off of them, and then there's choices that need to be made. Like I shared earlier, I spoke to the class of paramedics today, and I said, I call what happened to me a gift because it's changed me into a better human being.
Yeah.
The other alternative is to say I was traumatized, but I've tell people when you do that, when you form a narrative about a situation, you have to form beliefs and behaviors that support your narrative.
Yeah.
So if I said, "Oh, boo hoo, Don, this happened to me, it's not fair," and all this other nonsense, well, you probably wouldn't be talking to me right now. But it's a gift, and I've taken advantage of it, and I call him my teacher. But I also believe my past prepared me for the present. So this whole thing about being traumatized by my past and this and that. I mean, I remember being in the Army in 1983 when the master corporal threw all my clothes in front of me and made me march on them. I mean, I thought it was pretty funny. I had a hard enough time laughing at them. But there's some people now saying it was a hard time. But to me, it was like, I don't know, I was prepared for that. So it's like, because of my upbringing, I was unfazed by that. So my thought is everything that happens to us in life prepares us so we can consider it our education and our teacher and gifts, or we can consider it trauma and torment. But then you got to form that ignorant narrative around what you choose to believe. So my wife and I were just talking on the way down here of how this has been probably one of the best years of my life because of some decisions that I made back in 2012, or no, earlier this year when everybody was talking about, I'm going to live for me, I'm going to self-care, me, and I just wanted to throw up in my mouth. So I said, my goal this year is to live selflessly as I can, and think about other people, because it's easy in this condition to go make life all about me and my problems. But I choose not to do that. On my worst days, I try to do something for someone in my family or a friend, because it takes your mind off you and puts it on. So I choose to live that's my mindset, is to live as selfless as possible and what I can give rather than complaining about my situation.
Which is, to me, is an incredible mindset to have. I find far too many people in, these types of circumstances, they fall into, what I would call the victim card. To where, you're right, it is, oh, poor me, woe is me. Everybody orbit around my problems because of this thing that happened to me. But, the reality is there's worse things that have happened to other people that have still gone on to do incredible things. The athlete that loses their legs and still becomes a skier. The only limitations that a person is going to have is in their mind. If you decide that, oh, this is my life, so I'm just going to live on handouts or whatever it might be for the rest of my life. And, of course, for many people, they have to rely on that, but they don't make it their sole identity.
Yep. I read one of the first books I read after I got hurt. One of them was by Viktor Frankl, called Man's Quest for Meaning. Or Purpose, I think it was. And he said, if a man has purpose, he can do anything. And he talked about, he was a Holocaust survivor. And then I got pretty heavily into philosophy, Søren Kierkegaard, and I found a dude named James Allen. He wrote a book called As a Man Thinketh, So Is He, taken off of one of the Proverbs.
I've heard of that one. I haven't read it yet.
But it is just short little snippets, but it's all about we're only damaged and injured if we believe we're damaged and injured. So my thing now is the only thing I can control is my own thoughts. I can't control anything exterior of me. So I've even chosen to form no narrative about anybody else or any situation, because I don't know about you, but I've been wrong every time I've done it. And my narrative is that it's just about being positive and encouraging people, that because you get judging situations and it's exhausting. That I told him in this class this morning, I said, I've distanced myself from everything that causes anxiety and stress. And you look at that, that's the politics, the religion, even being a paramedic, the medical system. I'm with WorkSafe, that system. I'm in those systems, but I don't let them affect my sense of well-being, because I know that's my deal. WorkSafe a doctor can't make me feel bad because he doesn't believe me, because it really what he believes is irrelevant to me, because he's interpreting my experience. So I try to, I lose my memory is an issue.
No problem.
With this thing, and a huge deal. So I forget what I'm talking about sometimes.
That's all right.
Yeah. Which is, I'm okay with that now, but it was a little weird at first. But forming that narrative and those beliefs and just being careful of every thought. Like I've told, I take every thought that comes across me. If it's not positive and life-bringing, if it's got anything to do with anxiety, stress, blah, anger, frustration, I ditch it, because it's too exhausting to take those thoughts on when there's a much more better way to live. There's positive in everything.
The mind is a very powerful tool, and I will always believe that. I will always advocate for that. That makes me think of, maybe you're familiar with The Secret, Rhonda Byrne's. It's a very popular
I think I've seen the cover of the
self-help book,
yeah.
but it's all about the law of attraction, if you're familiar with that.
I have read that, yeah.
And in that book, it tells a story. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he goes by the Miracle Man. And basically, he was in an accident. He was told he would never walk again, and he said, "I am going to walk out of this hospital." So he with the only tool he had was his mind, and he would just continue to work his mind every day, allow that to translate into the physical part of it. And long story short of it, he walked out of that hospital on his own two legs. Just because he decided that he could. And he allowed his mind to do the job to get to where he could actually do that. All the doctors said, no, this is impossible. And he said, no, watch me.
And that's putting limitations on what we're capable of doing sometimes. But everybody likes to stick a label on something, because that's the thing too. You label somebody something. If I don't consider myself, we joke in the house and say I'm gimped, but it's as soon as you put a label on something, then too you're forming behaviors and beliefs about it. So I just I just don't see any point in doing that from a negative point of view, because it's just not productive.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this podcast. It's called Cripped to Ripped. You know, the Cripped, it kind of a play on the crippled portion of it. But it's more about the journey of it. You know, the to ripped, it's not about, you know, being physically ripped or anything about that. It's more about the journey to, you know, better oneself despite the circumstances that life gave them.
Yeah, I think one of the, because you mentioned, one of the big things was after the first 2 years, I couldn't read a book, I couldn't do nothing. And I started processing things. One of the first things that I was confronted with was my enoughness. Because as a guy, right, paramedic, doing all the stuff, the accolades, the pats on the back, you're being enough, right? And so that was my identity, was in my job, and I worked every shift that I could. And I got my sense of self-worth from that. And when that was taken away from me, not only that, I used to be a pretty fit guy, mountain biking, running, hunting, all this stuff, and all of it was just gone. And I'm now faced with, where do I get my value and worth from now? And it came from my value and worth that I've discovered is in who I am, just as a human being, not based on what I do, how well I do it, but based on who I am. So once I got that, my value isn't what I do, it took a lot of pressure off, you know, the fighting to get back to what I used to be, get back to work, get back. And every time I did that, Brian, it just went backwards, and I would end up in the hospital. You go downstairs to my gym thinking, oh, I can get back in shape. Well, next thing you know, you're calling the ambulance because you've overdone it and you're spending 5 days in the hospital. So when I discovered that my enoughness, who I am, and my value is just in being Don, and my wife and kids love me for who I am, not for what I can do for them, that was a huge game changer to move forward, to letting go that I don't have to perform. Because there's some days, dude, I don't even I have a hard time getting out of bed because of the chronic pain. I still do. I used to have time limits. I'd out of bed by 9 o'clock and bed made, and those have changed a little bit because things got a little rougher. And I like to think, you know, I turned 60 this year, so I'm a little older too. So
you got to be a little more lenient on yourself.
So I all of that pressure gone, and when that pressure's relieved, it's like I can breathe now. And so doing that, I've been able to navigate some of the other things going through this. Like now what do I do? How do I move forward? What is my philosophy what is the new philosophy of my life? Everybody's about vision statement and purpose and mission statement, and I can't tell you how much money I spent on trying to figure that stuff out. And quite frankly, I never did figure it out. But I read a book, somehow ended up, I used to be into stoicism. It was fantastic for teaching a person how to think and think logically and rationally, removing the emotion and the feeling from it. Because a lot of our thought comes from your emotions and feelings, and you just don't want to base decisions on that nonsense. So the stoicism really taught me how to think. So I got into this book on Gandhi, on this non-resistance to violence thing, and seeing how he lived his life. And the guy wasn't perfect for sure, but something attracted, because just the peace and the calm amidst people hating him and this and that, he was like so chill. So I'm like, where did Gandhi get this stuff from? Because I'm thinking I kind of liked it, because I needed to model my life after somebody or something. And Marcus Aurelius, who they consider he was an emperor. He was murdering and killing and taking people's lands, yet at the same time had this deep philosophical mind who, maybe he had an inward struggle in there, I don't know, about, I'm doing this, but it just doesn't feel right. So anyway, come back to Gandhi. And so I thought, where did he find this? And it turns out that he found this from early missionaries. He had conversations about the book of Matthew, chapter 5 through 11, about the Beatitudes, on the Sermon on the Mount, about how to do not resist a man, about being kind and compassionate. So if someone does something mean to you, you do something kind to them, and not judging people, because we don't know everything they're going through. So I'm like, okay, let me explore that a little bit. So the stoicism, and then Gandhi, and then philosophy is in there too, huge. Stoicism, philosophy, and then this Gandhi, and then this Matthew stuff. And I have to say it's transformed my life. Now, I don't look at the institutional religion stuff because it's quite frankly a bit of a mess. But if I strictly look at that and I look at the teachings of Jesus, and I go, okay, you know what? This guy never hurt anybody. He came, he cared about people, he had compassion on people. Like, okay, I think I can model myself after that. So now I'm gaining this philosophy of life where this is my philosophy of life, to live selfless, to be kind to people, and if I can help somebody, I help people, and not justify my own selfishness. Because I've nailed my life down to two things, Brian. There's selflessness, which is kind and giving, which is what I want to do, and then they're selfish. So for me, and I don't think I'm different than anybody else, every thought, every action, every deed is one of the two. You can have the 10 ways to be better at this or the 5 ways to be free from depression, but it boils down to, what is depression? It's thinking about me and my problems. So let's root that down to selfishness. So let's start saying to people, hey, Don, you're being selfish, instead of, oh, that's right, you have a right to be selfish because this isn't. No, you're being selfish and it's harming yourself and other people.
Right.
So now adopting this mindset, it is, like I said, I've had the best year of my life. Like the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket, but I see it differently.
Yeah.
I don't see I don't get anxious or anxiety about it or upset or angry at this political party or that political, because it's just broken people doing broken people. And so if I can bring a little compassion there and go, because I'm not on any side, I'm so indifferent towards most things because it just doesn't affect, because it's my internal world. Yeah. If my internal world is cool, it don't matter. I was asked today in the class, are you afraid of dying? I said, maybe in the beginning, but I need to tell you, I have zero fear of death right now. In fact, I kind of look forward to it. I have zero concerns about it. I think it's going to be a party. And, but yeah, so it created this philosophy of life to live by. And that's changed my life, because for 55 years, no philosophy of life. I was living trying to, I was in the military twice, a bunch of different jobs, and I'd made a bunch of mistakes. So you try to compensate for the mistakes in your life, the guilt and the shame of all of that. And that's where the forgiveness come. Like, I forgave myself, can't fix it, can't justify it because it was selfish. But what I can do is change now. Yeah. And move forward. And I'm not bad 100%, but it's transformed my life in such an amazing way without really any influence. Like, everybody likes to have this team of people around them. I don't. I've had my family, a few close friends, and a couple books. And it's been me deciding I'm going to move forward. So there's been no, come on, Don, you can do it from anybody. It's just been me making conscious choices that I'm going to choose to. I want a philosophy of life so that when I'm dead, I can go, yeah, I did. I ran a good race. Yeah. So,
which I think is great. You know, because it sounds like you kind of started diving into all the philosophy and everything kind of after the injury, right?
I was into it before a little bit, but nowhere near
Not
like
as
I
heavy.
was after. Yeah. After I got into it, I've actually I found my readings here for the most part are pre-1935, because my thoughts are, they seem to have a deeper, they thought differently. They perceived their world different. And it was less selfish, and they just saw the whole, I can't explain it. Whereas as you look at from Freud, that whole movement, and it's like, there's good people in psychology, but the movement itself is dangerous because they're making so many victims and saying, yeah, instead of getting people free, like I had one psychologist and she was great. And I told her, if you ever told me that in yourself, your opinions and your thoughts on what I'm experiencing, your subjective opinion on my experience, that we wouldn't have spoke after the first time. Yeah. But she never did. She just let me philosophically explore this stuff myself. So she was great, but I think that anytime somebody wants your money, be leery. is my theory, because they need you to be unhealthy to get a paycheck. Yeah. And I've known too many friends in counseling for years and years, and they ain't any better.
Well, that's I mean, I won't go too far into this, but that's a lot like the pharmaceutical industry, right?
Oh, totally,
You know,
dude, totally.
you don't have repeat customers with cured patients.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so on that, so I take no drugs. I have some hydromorphone at home and a few fentanyl patches, which I won't ever stick on my body again. The odd time I'll take a hydromorph. I don't know why, 3 milligrams, with that hope of, will I get a little bit of relief? Hasn't happened yet, but I still, what do they call it? Insanity. Keep doing things over and over again. So, but what I did try. A friend said, Don, have you tried cannabis? And I'm like, man, I'm 55 years, you know, do I really want to be smoking weed at this age? So I talked about it with the family, because there were some boys still in school, and it can be a weird thing. So the one son wasn't sure, so I said, well, you take your time, you think about it when you decide what you think, because if the family's not on board, it's not that big of a deal. He came back and said, yeah, Dad, it's okay. So 3 years, and what it's done is given me a portion of my life back, not in physical, but and it doesn't help with the pain. Some people say it does, but for me, it sort of frees up my brain from the pain,
Right.
so I can read a book, so I can journal a little bit.
Do you find it helps with the stuttering as well, or because I have seen connections of cannabis for that, for different maybe slightly different symptoms or
Yeah.
causes, but you know, I can't even think of what the condition of the guy I saw, but you know, before smoking, he'd be like
It was cerebral palsy.
it might
if
yeah,
that's
it
the
might have
same
been
thing.
cerebral palsy, and then as soon as he was able to take a puff, his whole body just calmed right down.
Yeah, I wish that worked for me that way. Sometimes it amps it up, but like I say, it just frees my mind so that I can think a little bit. And two, in an odd way, it gives me some energy so I can go downstairs to the gym. I got an Aerodyne bike. I do anywhere from 3 to 10, whatever my body will let me do. The desire to squat 400 pounds again is there, but I just know that it's not, you know, an air squat 10 times a day. That's a big, or 10 air squats a day. It's a big deal sometimes.
I hear you on that one.
All right, so
my last heavy squat before I got injured, you know, I was a strongman athlete, so I mean, I was squatting 550
that's a big squat.
for reps.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And now it's like I'm right there with the body squats, the air squats now, because I mean, this knee can't handle a heck of a lot. Although deadlifts, for some reason, just the angle of the leg, it doesn't put as much pressure on my
The
knee.
strain on
But it's once I get past that certain degree, that certain angle, that's when I feel a lot of pain right under the kneecap in the patellar region. Yeah, and it's kind of finding, you know, what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You know, squats are out, but I can still deadlift, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it's all about experimenting, and I just play with it every day. Like, what can I do today? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it's like some days there ain't nothing happening. There's nothing happening, but there's because I don't sleep a whole pile and I don't do sleeping pills. So if I get 3 hours of sleep, it's pretty good. So, and I don't like keeping my wife awake at night, moaning and groaning in bed. But so sometimes I'll get up. But I love to smoke meat. I got into. When I became a paramedic, a friend of mine got me into smoking. Now I have 5 smokers, a couple barbecues, flat tops.
What's your favorite? You going brisket?
I do love big pieces of meat, but there's no kids at home anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I do like the brisket, anything that's big roasts. I like making them
Something that's
burrito
going to take
tacos.
12 hours.
Oh, for sure. Or beef ribs. I'm into beef ribs.
Oh, yeah.
Oof, I tell you.
That makes my mouth water. I was a chef for over a decade.
Oh, really?
So anything food, I'm in there.
Okay. So I like to, I'll deep fried mac and cheese. So because I have a deep fry, so I have deep fried sandwiches, and so that's just, there again, it's there. If I was to do what they said, I wouldn't be doing that because I shouldn't, because I can forget the stove on, I can forget what I'm doing. So there's been some water on the floor and a few fires, but you just learn. So I set a timer, okay, 20, and I tell the timer what the timer's for, because the timer goes off, I'll have no idea what it goes off for, right? So, but so just using those things to distract myself, the reading. I don't watch a lot of TV, but to keep my mind active. But going back to the fitness, it's all about movement, because being a paramedic, I've seen a lot of older people. You get old, you fall, you break a hip.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's a death sentence, but when you're older and fall and break a hip, it's never a great thing to break a hip at any time. So I've told my kids, like, I got to stay somewhat fit, because I know you got a strong core, strong legs. So if I can do the air squats, go up and down them stairs. I still like to get out in the bush on my quad. I just got to do it with more responsible people than my kids, because I flipped my quad on Sunday and I'm feeling it a bit today.
And the fitness aspect is important. I would say even, before an injury happens, ideally, strength training, resistance training, especially, that's something I will always advocate for. And I'm 100% believe that is the reason that I still have a leg today. Because what happened with me is, like, basically I was delivering furniture. And unloading a very heavy root table, like a tree trunk root.
Oh, yeah.
I think the thing was probably around 300 pounds. It was me and one other guy taking it off. The guy was Ukrainian, didn't speak very much English, but anyways, we were delivering just outside of Joffrey, and the ramp that comes out of the back of the delivery truck. It's about wide enough for a dolly to be able to go down. And because the thing was so heavy and awkward, the weight wasn't really the issue. Being a strongman athlete, 300 pounds is kind of like nothing, but it was the awkwardness, nothing to really hang on to. It was almost worse than a sandbag in a sense. But, so I must have been cradling it pretty wide. And when I went to go step on the ramp, I missed. So that was about 3.5, 4 feet. And all of that weight landed onto my left leg. My knee was completely dislocated. My kneecap was on it was like out here. It was on the outside of my leg. You could see the bone shape of the femur through there. And it was a complete rupture: ACL, MCL, PCL, torn meniscus, torn quad, and fractured femur.
Well, if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right, eh?
I think they call it the terrible trifecta. Because the only one that didn't go was because everything kind of folded in this way. So it was the only ligament that didn't go was the one on this side, the LCL, I think. But everything else completely ruptured. There was like nothing left of it. So that was 2 surgeries. But the point I was making with this is, being a strongman athlete, doing lots of strength training, and strength training is going to do a few things. It's going to build the lean muscle tissue around the bone. It's going to increase your bone density as well. So when those big accidents happen, it's, is it going to prevent it from happening? Obviously not. I can prove that. But, to only fracture the femur, I mean, I should have shattered my leg. And had that happened, I probably would have lost it. I was already very high risk for amputation the first night. And any worse, and I wouldn't have a leg today. So fitness is important.
It's huge.
Strength training, and it doesn't need to be squatting 500 pounds. No. It can just be, what you can manage, right?
Because you're talking about, I had a funny story. We was at a call in Creston, and there was a bigger fella, probably 300 pounds easy. I think he was missing an arm. He fell on the floor. So we're trying to get him up. Tight, confined area. So I'm back up against the wall. We get him up, and he pushed me up against the wall, and I ended up in a ski sit, and he's on my lap. And there was no way. There was about 4 paramedics there, a couple firefighters, and I got this 350-pound guy sitting on me for about 5 minutes till we could get beds and everything out of that, which because when I got to the hospital, the doctor said the only thing that saved you was your leg strength. I did have one of the guys, because my one leg was up front. I said, Rob, grab my leg and pull my boot in underneath me so that I'm a little in a stronger position. But it saved my bacon. I could have sat there with them for a little while like I was Santa Claus. But totally. I encourage the paramedics when I talk to them, was like, stay fit, stay healthy, because your partner depends on you, your patient depends on you. So if you're having a heart attack walking up 3 flights of stairs to get to your heart attack.
Well, and I would imagine as a paramedic too, I mean, you don't know where you're going to get sent to, right? I mean, you could be having to, take a 350-pound person down 3 floor flights of stairs or something, right?
Yeah, you got to get creative sometime on because you never know. You never know what you. I've had some good times in the back of the hand. I've been attacked once. But I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Because I know he just attacked me, and I just put him in it. Cops came in to pull him out, and he still needs to go to the hospital. His freaking head's busted wide open.
Yeah.
Do you want to charge? No, I'm not going to press. He's drunk. Whatever to the psych patient. I worked with great people.
Yeah.
Great patients. I loved got some crazy stories. One older lady, about 110 pounds. She was messed up, so I just carried her out of her house because, get this straight, it's just be a lot of pain in the butt. So she says to me after I went through her threshold, she goes, I haven't been carried through my threshold since my husband walked me through here after the war, and she gave me a little kiss on the cheek. So it's a great job, great people, very rewarding, and I missed it for the first couple of years. I'd hear the sirens and I'd be like a dog whining, I want to go back to work.
I mean, I know for myself, I'd have to say my experience with the paramedic staff and the ambulance were probably pretty good. My only complaint was waiting over an hour for the ambulance, but for where we were, it wasn't Rosen Lake, it was the other lake just north of Joffrey there.
Okay, yeah.
So a little out of the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were waiting over an hour, and I couldn't move move my knee like half an inch. And it was I just had to focus on my breathing.
Yeah.
That's all I could do. I was hyperventilating at first a little bit, but there were some guys working in the area, and they kind of helped me, kept some shade on me and stuff like that. And then the paramedics came, and once they gave me the laughing gas, it was great.
Yeah. A little Entonox is always a little nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think I took the damn thing off.
Yeah.
I tried to hold a conversation with the mask on my face. And,
yeah.
And then they had to pull over at some point between there and Cranbrook to get the big guy with the good stuff.
Yep. Tyler. He's a great guy, ACP. We have a few of them in town now. They're fantastic for our community, by the way.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that ambulances don't carry I guess the heavier narcotics, painkillers, like fentanyl. I think they gave me fentanyl, but it was the pickup truck that they had to pull over on the side of the road.
So those are the ACPs. We have 2 guys that are mobile in town now, but I think there's actually 3 or 4 ACPs. But on the coast, it's pretty common. They're a lot more. We've only had them in the Kootenays for maybe the last 5 years.
Oh, really?
Maybe a little longer. So, because their scope of practice is, there's your PCP, which is a good scope, but that ACP, when it comes to cardiac, your more serious stuff, the pain management, like your knee, when they come and pick me up, they're giving me ketamine or they're not moving me. Right. They're a great addition to the community. Save a lot of lives, those guys. Yeah.
How did they do it before they got here then?
We didn't.
You just didn't?
Just PCPs, we did what we could and drove real fast.
Just got to the hospital as fast as possible.
Yeah, summon your inner Ricky Bobby and lights and sirens and give her. But even now, the scope of practice for the primary care paramedics is increasing.
Oh, okay.
So they're expanding things, but it's a system, right? So it's not going to happen quickly. Yeah. They just got us off $2. When I was working, it was still $2 an hour to carry that pager. Oh, okay. So you'd get to work and pray somebody would get hurt, so you could go to work. Right. Kind of a mixed up way to go to work, but they're full-time jobs now, so they've changed. Yeah. They've changed. It's improved a lot.
Oh, okay.
For paramedics.
Which is good for, like you said, for the community. More services, more people getting helped. Potentially life-saving as well.
Yeah, more coverage. Yeah. So
that's good. You don't realize that we're such a small town compared to the big city sometimes.
Yeah, and kudos to our paramedics, because we for years didn't have all that extra support. Yeah. And still did a great job in the swath of area that you can cover. Well, you said you waited for an hour. I've gotten calls in Cranbrook where we had to go to, or Kimberly, we went to Canal Flats, or Fairmont, just because Invermere's ambulances were who knows where. Yeah. And just only so many ambulances some days.
I guess that is the more challenging part for the Kootenays, is that everything is so far apart. But then I guess on the contrary, if you're in Vancouver, the distance is shorter, but the traffic is heavier. So I don't know if that balances out in any degree.
They have those hired, because there's the advanced care paramedics, and they also what's called critical care paramedics, which those dudes are just about doctors. Oh, okay. So they have a lot more support on the coast than we do here. It's getting better. But I've been out of the game for a while too. I'm just going
I imagine that's maybe a little bit based on population of an area to which gets services before other communities, or
I think so, but then again, who knows what systems decide to get what. So right, so 'cause sometimes you go, what?
who's greasing properly, I guess.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I still miss the job, great people, and the patients. But this is life, and I have a great life, zero complaints. I got this thing that got, because for walking, I go anything from my cane to a walker to some days I'm in a wheelchair. So I got this thing for my wheelchair that's like the front end of a motorbike.
Okay.
So I've topped up some pretty speeds. I won't say anything in case somebody's just, but I've hit some pretty crazy speeds. You can draft behind a dump truck, but it's pretty good. So it's just about living your life the best you can and being kind, and watching the story, because you got to live with whatever narrative you choose.
Yeah, we're all
Whatever you choose.
We're all living through something. Everybody's got different circumstances, and if I always say, because it does come down to the mindset. We talked about it a little bit already, but I always say that negative people will always find something to complain about, whether it's the weather, whether it's the car in front of them, whether it's this, that, or whatever. They're always going to be negative, and they're always going to complain. Where the positive mind, a positive person, is always going to find something to be grateful about, to be positive about. Where the negative person complains that it's raining, the positive person says, "Wonderful, it's raining."
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of moisture. It's when someone's a negative, I feel like it's compensating for some gross unhappiness. And if they can see something that's worse than them, and you can judge it and say, well, that's this or this, you somehow feel better about the situation.
Temporarily.
Maybe, it doesn't last. But if you go, even when it comes to people, to call some person an asshole or a jerk, well, that's pretty subjective, because you don't even really know them. And I don't know about you, but anytime I've formed an opinion of somebody, it's always been wrong. Mostly when it comes to their motives and whatnot. So now I just don't. When someone, whether they're rude or whatever, I don't know what kind of a day they're going through. So here's what I can do for that rude person. I can be kind to them. Go to the bar, go to a restaurant, waitress isn't that great, or the waiter, and they say, well, that's not very good service. I'm not going to tip them. Well, tip them a little bit more, because have you ever had a bad day? So that little bit of kindness kind of can sometimes, my hope is maybe we'll trigger something to someone's going, you know what, life's not that.
You don't know what they're going through. They might have just lost a loved one, or they might have just got fired from their job, or who knows.
It's just not, there's so much animosity and fighting in the world right now. It's like and really it's ridiculous, because nobody really knows what nobody really knows. I mean, politics, well, show me any political party that's really done anything. Show me that's done anything good for everybody. Don't.
No, it doesn't. It's like an oxymoron.
It is. And they will do this and they will do this. Yeah, so I have no, it's exhausting thinking about it, because it's like, so why put any energy into that? If you want to do that, fine, believe that. I don't care. If you want to say this person's your enemy and hate them because they believe different than you, well, that's on you, because that just means you're part of the problem, and you're not any different. You're not any different. You're accusing them of the very same thing that you're doing, whether that's politics or life or whatever. It's like most times when I've accused someone of doing something, I find when I think about it, Brian, I've been somewhat guilty of it. If not in the actual deed, I've definitely thought about it. So I just kind of try to quit doing that, because the same thing, it just makes life easier and more peaceful.
At the end of the day, nobody's perfect.
No, and just allow people to be people, and just, I think if we just can encourage one another and support one another, and just, stop the nonsense. Because I think it's our natural state to be actually kind to one another. I think it's quite opposite against our natural state to run around killing each other and that sort of stuff. I think being kind and treating one another with dignity, I think that's our natural.
It should be, at the very least.
Yeah, but I think our unnatural state has become so normal, we think it's natural. I had a thought once about the guys who, in the military, jump on a grenade, or the guy who runs into the burning building. They call them selfless, or where they think nothing about themselves and they just run in and do that. I kind of wonder, because if that's not in each and every one of us, it's just whether or not we respond. And that actually is our most perfect state when we see those examples of, here's an example of a human, of what we're capable of all the time, every day, not just in rare situations.
Now, unfortunately, we're more likely to see somebody pull out their phone and start video recording when something happens instead of just helping.
Yeah. Well, funny story about that. Because of weird things that happened, we were out one day and I just passed out, because I can do that, in the snow, laying there, and people just walked by my wife.
Yeah.
Just walked by there, and her husband's laying there and spasming.
Yeah, it's like they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for helping, which it shouldn't be like that. And there has been cases where a good Samaritan has tried to help and they end up getting sued or whatever it might be, and that discourages people, I think. And it shouldn't be like that.
And that's the nonsense of the worldly systems.
Yeah.
They just don't make any sense.
No. So so kind of going back to your injury, and this is kind of a question I like to ask everybody. You know, if you were to either go back in time or were to have a conversation with somebody who is had the same injury, same circumstances, or similar, you know, what advice would you give to your you know, your 5-year ago self, or to that other person going through something similar?
The big thing is, watch your narrative, the story you're telling yourself, because out of that narrative, you form your beliefs, and out of those beliefs form your behaviors, and then you got to live with that. So in every situation, I'm very conscious of my narrative that I'm telling myself, and nobody else can tell me the narrative. I can have all kinds of information coming at me, but at the end of the day, I'm responsible for my own narrative. So the big thing I would tell myself is watch your narrative, watch your thinking, and control, because the only thing you can control is you and your thoughts. Everything else is out of your control. What happens to you from the external world, can't control. What other people say or do, can't control. Only thing we can control, and we're powerful people, is that narrative and our beliefs and our behaviors. We'll sink or swim on our beliefs or behaviors and narratives. I'm convinced of that. I tell everybody I don't have opinions about things anymore, because that means I'm right. So I could be wrong, and it's scarier if you agree with me and I'm wrong. Yeah. So these are just, I try to say that they're thoughts that I'm presenting that I hold loosely, that because they could change. But as of right now, my thoughts. These would be my thoughts, not my opinions that I mistake for absolute truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I've done in the past, regretfully. But yeah, so just some thoughts is, that narrative, beliefs and behaviors, big deal, be careful.
Yeah, kind of choosing your own actions. That's something I try to teach my daughter. She's 8 years old, and she'll get upset over the smallest things. I'm like, you have control over how you choose to react to that, over something so small too. You know, it could be whatever it is. You know, she used to get upset because she'd be coloring something and it didn't look like the way she wanted it to in her head or something like that. And I'm like, but you don't, you know, you're learning, you're getting better. The point is that you're trying, and if you make a mistake, you can recognize the mistake that you made, and then you can figure out a way to not repeat that, and then you're getting better. You don't have to be perfect right away. You know, perfection takes time, and I truly believe there is no such thing as perfect.
No, neither do I.
You know, somebody who thinks that they're perfect, they stop growing.
Yeah.
Because they don't think that they have to grow anymore, because they think they're perfect.
Yeah. Or I tell my boys, when you read these books, don't go dump it on everybody else.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what you need to do. Well, it's not really. Why would you do that?
And they can all be interpreted different. I've got a bookshelf full of books that I've, you know, more on the, you know, self-development and leadership and, you know, more educational types. But, you know, for each topic, there's going to be a dozen different authors with a different opinion on that one topic. So you kind of just read them all and take the little bits and pieces out of each one, and then just figure out what makes the most sense to you.
Yeah, take the little piece, but that's what I do. I just take a little here or there.
Yeah.
And I found this website called ForgottenBooks.com.
Oh, okay.
And it's all books that are out of print from old books, like I've got some stuff from the 1500s and stuff. It's tough reading, but it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Their thought process.
Yeah, a little bit old English.
Yeah.
The way, like ye old, maybe not ye old.
Just about old King James. But their worldview was so dramatically different. And then you go back even further to like some of the 300 AD stuff in there.
Yeah.
Their worldview on the whole, I'm just fascinated by their thought process and how they viewed things. Because I think, in some ways I think they were smarter than we were.
There's a lot of fascinating things in history. I'm a little bit of a history nerd, especially medieval period. Like 8th century to 15th century, 16th century, kind of around there.
When Catholicism was raping and pillaging the planet.
Yeah, I mean, my ancestry is part Danish, half Irish, quarter Finnish, Danish.
Oh, okay.
So like the Vikings are very fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Kind of invading in the, what was it, the 8th century, 9th century. Just fascinating stuff. And then you see the whole translation to, Christianity for them, which was, right around 864, somewhere around there, I think it was. But yeah, just
and it was probably convert or die. I think that's what
it was kind of pretty much like that. I mean, I think initially they did it just to appease in some ways. And then you look at like Rollo the Walker. He was the Dutch of Normandy.
Oh yeah.
The first Dutch of Normandy.
Okay.
But he was a Viking.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of neat history. But Don, this has been a fantastic conversation. I did not anticipate it going in the directions that we went today. Yeah, I think we'll kind of start to wrap things up, but I will leave the floor to you if there's any last message or anything that you might want to say, and then we'll give it a wrap.
No, I don't think so. Other than just thanks for the opportunity to come and share a little bit. Feel pretty privileged, and it's just you can call it a tragedy, or you can just the labeling of stuff. And so this is my gift, and it's a gift I get to share with my family and friends now of this new me. But it's because of choices that I've made. Yeah. Nobody has, without coercion, without any sort of bricker, firecracker, zip, zoom, bah. Yeah. Don, I don't have a cheerleader team behind me who says you can do it. It's just me consciously going, get up. But I've always kind of been that way because I used to do some endurance mountain bike races. Yeah. And I'd say, come on, fatty, keep going. Just exhausted. But it's just that narrative, beliefs and behaviors, and everybody's valuable.
Awesome. Well, Don, again, appreciate you taking your time to come and have a conversation with me today. And I think it was a great one.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And that's a wrap.